So I'm Barbara Jones, and I've been working in construction for 30 odd years now. And I set up my own company, which some of you might have heard of, Amazon Nails, many years ago. Yes, there is a joke in that. And we're now called Strawworks. And in many ways, I think that what we've tried to do is to put into practice the sorts of theoretical ideas that have been discussed here. Certainly I've been informed by my own gut reactions and experiences and emotions about what I've encountered in the world through being in construction, through being a woman in construction, and the barriers and prejudices that I've faced in dealing with that. And as a company, we have 4 values, which are passion, sustainability, empowerment, and fun. And we really try to remember those as we work, because we're very much at the grassroots end of building. We're pioneers of natural building, and we've been doing it probably longer than anybody else, which doesn't mean we know all the answers or that we're better than anybody else. It just means that we've got some experience. And we have, over the years, we've become more and more conscious about saying those things out loud, about including everybody, about diversity, inclusion, egalitarianism, about sharing knowledge and skills with everybody, and through that empowering people. And we see the results of that every day that we're working, and it's absolutely amazing, I have to say. And we work with all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds, so it's not one type of person. We work with people who've got very little money who want to build their own house. We work with community groups who've got very little money but need a workshop or a training centre or a compost toilet. We work with housing associations who want social housing. We work with councils. We work with schools. So lots of different groups of people who in some way or another need a building. And part of what we try to incorporate into that building is a process. So it's a live and dynamic way of sharing skills and knowledge with the community, with other people. And the aim is to empower people. And we see the results of that all the time when we're training people. People like anybody in this room could come on one of our training courses, and I guarantee you would feel different at the end of it. And most people feel that a huge sense of excitement and a recognition of an ability to do things that you didn't think you could. And that doesn't mean that you're going to do straw bale building at the end of that week's training, because a lot of people don't. But what they do is they look at their lives and they make changes, very positive changes. Things they change their job, they change their relationship to things, they change their relationship to people, they move house, they decide to live in a different way. And that's, to me, that's what empowerment is about. It's about enabling people to take control of their lives in whatever way that manifests. And we do it through natural building, and I think that that's just a brilliant form. And it's partly because one of our values is passion. I absolutely believe passionately that we've had construction taken away from us by this society, and that if we could just all be part of that in some way, things would be very different. And so it's part of our mission, if you like, to give people the chance to experience what it's like to work on buildings in the way that we used to do, because that changes things. And we work with natural materials. So one of our principles is that we never ever use cement, because cement, although you could argue it has some appropriate uses, it's the biggest environmental factor. It creates the most greenhouse gas. The production of cement is a very negative aspect of our construction industry, and so as a principle we won't use it, which has meant that I've designed lots of types of foundations that don't require cement. And the thing about working with natural materials is that they're user-friendly. So you can get your hands into the clay, you can get hold of straw bales, they're accessible to everybody. You don't have to have a high degree of professionalism, skill and knowledge to be able to use them, and yet with some training and some supervision you can get off and do your own thing pretty quickly and achieve a good result. So there's just such a lot of fun in doing that, because you're doing it, you don't want to be doing it on your own, really. It can be soul destroying doing anything on your own, especially a big project, and you get the most out of it if you do it with a whole bunch of other people. And working with natural materials in the ways that we do gives you that experience and that absolutely emotional knowledge that working in a group of like-minded people is a fantastic thing, and together we can do amazing things that we can't do on our own, that we need each other as part of a team. And that philosophy we make very conscious in our training courses when we're on because we do all our training on real building sites with real people self-building their own projects. We've got, half a dozen every year that we work on, and people get that knowledge that we can actually all do this. It's not a big step, but it's been taken from us, that way of working. So I don't know if any of you have heard of the Incredible Edible movement, which is it's a grassroots movement about propaganda gardening and just growing stuff to eat for everybody in communal places. And it started in our hometown of Todmorden in West Yorkshire by a couple of women sitting down over a cup of tea and saying, we've got to do something about this. What can we do? We can't wait for people to just pass laws or make changes. We've just got to get on and do it. So they did. So that has had a dramatic effect on our town, and that's what we decided to do as a company. We decided to set up the School of Natural Building. We haven't got any money, we haven't got any funding, but there is a need for it, and it's proved to be popular. We've got 30 odd people signed up to the school, and we're training them to work with natural materials, to pass on that knowledge, to go out as little satellites and do their own thing and carry on passing on the knowledge, like throwing pebbles into a pond. These ripples are going out into the world and making change happen. And I've been doing this for 20 years, so I can look back to the time when I first started straw bale building, and everybody would just laugh at me. And because I felt so passionate about it, I didn't care, because I knew I was saying something that needed to be said. And now people don't laugh at me. They ask me to sit on panels and talk about it. And but it's still something very vibrant and something that is really exciting to be part of. So in terms of appropriate technology, what we're talking about is using natural materials as much as possible, not processed. So that means straw, the bales that just come off the field, and so the energy that's gone into that is the diesel to drive the tractor, do the baling machine and carry it to wherever your building site is. So it's very, very low tech. And we use natural plasters, so lime, which is quite high in embodied energy, but it does, although it creates carbon dioxide through its manufacturing process, it takes it back in through its life cycle, and it goes back to something natural at the end of its life. Clay, which is even more user-friendly because you don't have to burn clay to use it. And that is the thing that makes people really happy. Working with straw, working with clay, you should see the smiles on people's faces. It really touches you. And when you've had that experience, you want to do more of it. And we're very good at networking in our company because people get this very positive experience, and then they start sharing it around with the people that they've done their training with other people, with the School of Natural Building. And that's not something we want or need to be in control of. That's just something that's happening now. And the thing about straw bale building, the movement of straw bale building, is we don't have patents. We work with that principle. We call it the KISS principle. Keep it simple, sweetheart. So we try to keep everything as low tech as possible. Our major tools are claw hammers, Stanley knives, and tape measures. They're not tools that you'll find it difficult to buy or to find or borrow. And we generally don't use things like chainsaws and electric power tools, although you can use them, and commercially people do use them. But it keeps things within the remit of what ordinary people can manage. And it is possible to build houses using tools like that, maybe slightly more complicated, but you can build your own house. And it's possible for a self-builder in this day and age to build their own house for 50,000. And what we're seeing as the main problem to that sort of self-empowerment is not the materials themselves or how we use them, it's the price of land. And it's the availability of land. And that's the major barrier, is the fact that we have hundreds of people come to us want to build a straw bale house, and they can't because they can't find the land to do it on. And that's the real problem. And if we did, we'd be like France, because in France they're building 1,000 self-built straw bale houses every year because they've got the land. And we were doing straw building before they were, and that's what's holding us back with natural building. And so obviously my area that I concentrate on is straw bale building. I do that, I think that's the best, but other people do other things which are also of good value, things like cob building, adobe building, lime hemp building, timber. I mean, timber is a very good natural material, close to straw. They're both plant materials. It's slightly more processed, that's all. And it's how we used to build our houses before stone. So all of those sorts of, that's what I think of when I think of appropriate technology. I think of appropriate materials and appropriate ways of using those materials, and the technology, we talk about it in terms of how do you put a house together so that in the 21st century we can have a warm house that we don't have to use fossil fuels to heat. So that's partly about design, it's partly about the right choice of materials, it's partly about good quality building, but it's possible to do that, and it would be possible for every single person in this country to live in a house of that high quality and comfort that they would love, that makes you feel happy inside, that gives you the ambience inside. Because natural materials, unless you've been in, like this building is made predominantly of natural materials. It's made of stone, lime, some cement, timber, but it feels different than sitting inside a building that's made of concrete block and plastered with gypsum plaster. And as you start being aware of those feelings, you'll notice it more and more, that you prefer, we as human beings, we prefer to live, to inhabit natural environments with natural materials that are not toxic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.